She threw another party out in my backyard and told everyone I forgot I said yes. Oh no, Karen. This time, I brought receipts. HOA Karen threw a party at my pool again, but I own the entire property. Part 1. The glitter that broke the silence. She was back. Again. Dripping in sequins, laughing like she ruled the sunset. Sprawled across my lounge chair like she'd never begged for comfort on this same patio 3 summers ago. This time, she wasn't crying. She was throwing another party. Under my pergola, over my pool, as if the HOA had gifted her this backyard as a throne. It wasn't the lights, or the clinking wine glasses that broke me. It was the betrayal. The silent storm it stirred in my chest. The reminder that I'd let her get too close, too soon. But not anymore. Part 2. The memory that shook the water. 3 summers ago, I held her on this patio. As she sobbed into my shoulder, begging her husband not to leave. I believed her then, offered wine, casseroles, even a heater when hers broke. Back then, this pool was still a mirror of my grief. More stillness than celebration. But I let her in. Let her soak in silence that I once needed for myself. Now, she's waving to guests like it's her kingdom, and the kicker? Some of these guests believe it is. She told them the HOA approved her events, claimed I was part of some shared agreement, said I had memory lapses, and I started to believe it. For a moment, I actually questioned if I had given her permission. That's how good she was. Part 3. The fog she built around me. It wasn't about pool parties. It was about control. She ran the HOA now, and in her mind, that meant my property was community space, even though I'd never joined. Even though my deed explicitly excluded me. She didn't care. She smiled through lies, dodged accountability like a politician, told neighbors I was distancing, not doing well. And they believed her. I felt invisible. On my own porch, in my own house, that slow, suffocating fog. It took time to lift, but when it did, I saw clearly. She wasn't just trespassing. She was rewriting my story and casting herself as the lead. Part 4. The documents that fought back. One night I found it. A denied zoning request filed by Karen to merge my land with hers. The county had rejected it months ago, but no one knew. That's when her behavior shifted, when the parties multiplied. She failed to take it legally, so she came for it socially. Lanterns over my pool, music under my sky, guests who never asked whose house it was. So I didn't yell, didn't call the cops. I printed the denial and made a different kind of plan, one she wouldn't see coming, until it was already too late. Part 5. The evidence beneath the surface. I started collecting everything, photos of the decorations, the wine bottles, screenshots of text messages where she casually claimed to host from my yard. I installed cameras, quietly, tucked behind potted plants, under the eaves. Every guest, every lantern strung, every voice that laughed without asking who owned the ground beneath them. I recorded it all, and then I organized it, not like a victim, but like a strategist. Time stamps, folder names, cloud backups, not a single detail left to chance. I wasn't preparing for a fight. I was preparing for proof. Because people like Karen don't respond to decency. They only flinch when you show them a mirror they can't dodge. And this time, the reflection wouldn't lie. Part 6. The calm before the counterstrike. The next party came on a Thursday. Balloons, string lights, and a DJ speaker tucked beneath my lemon tree. She didn't even knock. didn't text, just claimed the yard like she always had. But this time, I didn't watch from behind the curtain. I stood at the top of the stairs, holding a folder, my evidence, my boundary. And then I stepped back, let her finish, not out of fear, but because I needed the silence afterward. That stillness? It would hit harder than any confrontation ever could. When the music faded and the last guest stumbled out with a wine glass still in hand, I walked the yard, not to clean, but to document. Every confetti scrap, every glass ring on my teak table, captured, filed, dated. By morning, it would be in the city inspector's inbox. But that wasn't all. I wrote a letter to the HOA board, not to complain, but to inform. I attached copies of Karen's texts, her zoning denial, her statements falsely claiming my property as shared community space. I added one sentence. Future liability rests not only with the trespasser, but those who endorsed her actions. I didn't sign it in anger. I signed it in clarity, and I mailed it with the calm of someone who finally knows exactly what they're doing. Part 7. The Whisper That Shook the Street. 2 days later, my phone buzzed. Not a threat, not a text, just a picture. From my neighbor, Daryl, someone who rarely said more than 5 words at a time. The photo? Karen, standing on his porch, mid-conversation, captioned simply, "She's spinning it again." And I knew what that meant. She was trying to flip the narrative. Fast. Telling people I was unstable, that I wasn't coping well, that she had been trying to help maintain community peace. Classic Karen. Frame the damage as compassion. But this time, the story didn't stick. By the end of the week, I had 3 more neighbors forward emails, screenshots, even HOA group messages where she'd tried to rewrite the truth. And every single one of them ended their message to me the same way. Let me know if you need anything. Not pity, not drama, support. It was subtle, quiet, but powerful. She didn't know it yet, but the walls were closing in. The same neighbors she used to manipulate were now watching her closely. And me? I was done whispering. It was time to let the truth echo. Part 8. The chair, the check, and the shift Sunday morning. I opened my front door to water my plants, and there it was. My lounge chair, the same one Karen had spilled champagne on months ago, perfectly cleaned, and stacked neatly beside the fence. Next to it, a plain envelope, no return address, just my name, scribbled in familiar, rushed handwriting. Inside, a check and a short note for the damage. The amount? Exact. Down to the dollar. The glitter cleanup, the snapped chair leg, the clogged pool filter from her 4th of July party. I didn't need a signature. I recognized the guilt. It wasn't an apology. It was a transaction. But sometimes, even silence is an admission. I didn't cash it. I filed it. Next to every photo, every email, every piece of proof. Because this wasn't about money. It was about the line she crossed, and the one I'd redrawn. That evening I sat by the pool, alone. No music, no laughter, just the breeze brushing past the water, like a long exhale after holding your breath for too long. I watched the porch across the street. Karen's banner was gone, her lights unplugged. The HOA queen had lost her crown. But I didn't smile. I didn't toast. I just whispered, "Finally." Part 9. The newsletter that ended the rain. It arrived like any other HOA newsletter, folded, impersonal, stuffed in my mailbox between junk ads and water bills. But page 2? That's where everything changed. Buried beneath a list of landscaping reminders and potluck RSVPs. was a short announcement. Effective immediately, Karen W. has stepped down from her position as HOA president, citing personal obligations and a need for rest. No ceremony, no farewell, no thanks. Just a quiet footnote in the paper trail of her unraveling. I stared at it, not in triumph, but in relief. And then I exhaled. For the first time in years. My name wasn't in that newsletter. My yard wasn't under scrutiny. It was over, but I wasn't finished. Not yet. Because as much as the newsletter closed a chapter, it didn't rewrite the damage. So I walked inside, pulled out a fresh sheet of paper, and started a new draft. To whom it may concern, because Karen's retreat didn't mean accountability, and if no one else would document what happened here, I would. Not for revenge, but for record, because silence is powerful, but history, it's louder. Part 10, the pool, the peace, and the power. I didn't throw a party, didn't send invites, didn't hang lights, but the night she stepped down, I walked outside, barefoot, and dipped my toes into the pool. The water was still, no floating cups, no glitter, just moonlight and memory. That silence, it wasn't empty anymore. It was earned. I sat at the edge, breathing it in. The sound of nothing had never felt so full. Then, a sound I hadn't expected. A soft knock at my side gate. I stood, opened it, slowly, and there stood Priya, my neighbor. She didn't bring food, or gossip, just a quiet nod and a question. Mind if I join you? We sat together in lawn chairs, no words, no planning, just peace. And one by one, others came, not to invade, not to take, but to rebuild. The neighborhood didn't need a ruler. It needed room. And now, it finally had some. Epilogue. The fence, the flame, and the future autumn rolled in like a hush over the hills, crisp leaves curling at the edges, the pool quiet beneath a sky turning gold. Karen's house, sold. The porch empty, no more banners, no more watchful eyes. The new family moved in quietly, and for the first time in a long time, there was no tension, no whispers, just laughter, the kind that doesn't linger with suspicion. I planted lavender along the fence line, repainted the deck, hung a wind chime that sounded like calm, not control. I didn't do it to forget. I did it to remember. That peace must be tended, just like gardens. One afternoon, I found the check again, tucked in a folder with photos, notes, receipts, all the evidence of the war that never went to court, but reshaped everything. I framed it, hung it by the gate, next to a wooden sign that reads, "This yard was claimed, not by rule, but by roots." Neighbors still ask if I'll ever join the new HOA board. I smile, politely, and say the same thing every time. I already did my part, because this isn't about positions or policy. It's about knowing when to fight and when to sit back, breathe deep, and float. The pool reflects stars again. The air feels light. And this life, it's mine, unclaimed, unborrowed, unapologetically mine.